Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here, and today I want to welcome you to a spooky Halloween special. Just like many of you classic fans out there, there's one thing that scares me more than anything. One small little word actually that can mean so much. Change. Just look at it, terrifying. Just seeing this word makes me want to complain about how things were better back in the good old days and moan about all these damn Zoomer dungeon grinders these days. But wait, what's this? It's gone dark. You've been captured in a strange place. Out of the gloom, you see a familiar face slowly fade in, and you hear those all too familiar words in the background.
Now that said...
As you come to your senses, you realise you've been trapped in Ion's development dungeon. He then speaks.
Hey you're finally awake. If you want to see the light of day again, you have to add a change to each class in Classic from another expansion. Fail to do this and it'll transform you into a garrison follower. You will have to relive whatever day forever, a fate worse than death. Oh, and there are some rules. This change has to make sense with current abilities and talents. Must be impactful and not be something blatantly overpowered. Good luck.
Paladin is one of the more interesting ones for me. Straight away there are a few good alternatives that pop up in my mind. Should Paladins get a taunt? No, I think they're fine with their dungeon niche. Let's not add something just to shoehorn them into raiding scenarios. Avenger's Shield perhaps. Burning Crusade version seems a little too powerful, honestly. I do like the fact that it does holy damage and has a 30-yard range, so Paladin tanks can actually pull without having to run into stuff. But 3 targets for that much damage, it seems a bit much. There was a glyph in Wrath of the Lich King where it was changed to only hit 1 target, but dealt 100% extra damage. But that just makes it even more nuts for me. I think not being able to pull from range is a bit of a tedious weakness, but not really one I can address here. What about Crusader Strike though? That could work. It gives Retribution another button. It should help them out a good bit in combat. It can go straight in without having to change anything significantly. In fact, Paladins used to have Crusader Strike as a sort of placeholder before seals were brought into the game. And if you check many Paladin mobs in game, they often use Crusader Strike, which is simply a stacking holy damage taken increase. Mage is hard because mages are already kind of nuts, and it's pretty difficult to not just make them even more the best than they already are. So we're not going to have Ice Lance, no Water Elemental, no Icy Veins. I think any of these would totally break the class. Arcane Blast though, maybe. This ability was the missing link to making Arcane its actual own DPS spec. I think Arcane being more of a supportive tree is fine the way it is, and it would only give Mage another 1-button DPS spec to be fair, so it's not very exciting. I was considering Alter Time as well, but a 1.5 minute cooldown max seems a bit much as they can easily reset Arcane Power and Power Infusion in raids, as well as growing their advantage against melee classes in PvP even more. I really like the ability, though I think it's a bit too high on the power level. Invisibility seems fine enough. I think we need to aim touching mages on the utility side rather than adding more damage. This is a pretty nifty ability, especially in PvP, that is counterplay in the game from Warlocks being able to buff detect invisibility, so this would be my choice for the Mage. Druid, oh boy, where to go here? Blizzard gave this class a 4th specialization, Guardian, for the bear tanks, and Feral became the cat DPS specialization, and no other class has ever had this treatment. Is there a general spell that would add something for every specialization? Is that even necessary? Does Restoration or Feral Tank need help? No, I don't really think they do for me. Feral DPS is a high effort class involving power shifting, manual crowd pummelers, and loads of macros to make them great. And honestly, I'm okay with that. The effort put in is certainly rewarded in DPS performance for Feral, which leaves us with Balance. Now, I think Balance is on the verge of being great and could be nuts so easily. It has the damage once spell goes off, no doubt about that. It's just those long cast times and that small mana bar that cause the problems. Perhaps the Burning Crusade Moonkin form could help out a small amount. It gives more spell crit and regenerates the mana on crits as well. A small amount, sure, but any additional help would be pretty good. As well, you take less damage while stunned, which would also help you out in PvP a nice bit. Would a Moonkin with 5% crit make people consider a spot for the big chicken boy? Maybe it would. Maybe it would. Warrior. The first thing that comes to mind for Warrior from another expansion is Blade Storm without a doubt. However, in Classic this ability would be insanely overpowered. Warriors need a drawback. Every class needs a drawback, and their drawback is being kited quite easily once they get hit by a CC. Titan's Grip was another really memorable ability, and it would be pretty over the top as well. Imagine Earthshaker Bone Reaver's Edge Warrior, or Dark Edge of Insanity and Earthshaker. I think there's just too many insane options. Victory Rush was introduced in the Burning Crusade to give warriors some staying power and make their leveling a bit less painful. This ability was a decent role player, but it's not too exciting. Warriors are another one where they have very clear strengths and weaknesses, so utility once again makes more sense than trying to bridge a gap there. Intervene could be a decent addition. It does power creep warriors' mobility, but only to friendly targets. It also adds a skill cap for interrupting physical abilities on targets. It was often used to take a blind back in the day, but in Classic blinds are poison, so I guess it wouldn't work on it. Either way, this is the ability I'm going with for warriors. Hunter has had some pretty sweet variations over the years, and they've had some pretty solid abilities given to them, like Chimera Shot, which has changed so many in times over the years. In fact, they ended up being given focus, just like their pets in Cataclysm. That wouldn't make sense in Classic given the Hunter tier itemization, however. Kill Command was introduced in Burning Crusade. Not a bad ability, I could almost see this fitting into Classic, but really I wouldn't want to press reliance on pets as well. Unfortunately, they're super squishy. An ability I like a lot for Hunter is Misdirection. Once again, it's an ability that rewards good game knowledge and can help pulls in raids and dungeons. It fits the Hunter theme very well. It does downplay the importance of threat generation from tanks, which is the only part I don't like about it, as an aimed shot misdirect is going to generate an enormous amount of threat, but I do like the ability a lot for what it does. Shaman. I know what I would like for Shamans straight away, and while Shaman has some of the arguably best designed spells ever, something very simple could make a huge difference. And a few things did cross my mind: Elemental Overload, Earth Shield, Thunderstorm, Feral Spirit. Just tell me these spells aren't all super cool and unique. Oh, and Lava Burst as well. What I would want though is for enhancement to be able to dual wield, but unfortunately, it just wouldn't have the support it needs in Classic. Shaman weapon buffs only hit the main hand, and there's no extra hit talents for offhand weapons, so in Classic it would just be terrible. But how about another talent perhaps, one to help out enhancement again? The Wrath of the Lich King's Shamanistic Rage looks pretty interesting, gives a decent defensive and more importantly some mana regen every 1 minute. The only issue here is potentially having a 30% flat damage reduction every 1 minute, which is pretty insane. But I think you could get away with it giving it to a Shaman, more so than other classes. Rogues have had some pretty questionable spells given to them over the years. Anyone remember the Wrath of the Lich King Throne specialization, where Fan of Knives interrupted spells for 3 seconds in an AoE around the rogue and was spammable? I got rid of that one before the expansion was over. Burning Crusade gave rogues some pretty iconic spells too: Mutilate, Shadow Step, Cloak of Shadows. None of them feel like they'd fit, especially Cloak, which would completely break rogues in PvP. The Burning Crusade era cheat death was also way over the top in power level. The fact that it could activate once per minute just tops it off as well. I don't feel like Tricks of the Trade fits, since we've already given Hunter an aggro management tool, and just going for another one seems like a bit of a cop-out. So what'll it be then? Rogues hardly need more help as it is. Honestly, this is probably the toughest one yet. Perhaps we could go for Recuperate, which was introduced in Cataclysm. When it was first brought in, it gave 3% health per 3 seconds for up to 30 seconds maximum, and it was shortly nerfed to 2% during the expansion. 5 combo points for 20% health seems like a fair trade in terms of power. I realise that giving rogues healing is probably not a good idea, as you can CC people for an insane amount of time in Classic, but I think for that amount of healing, for that amount of combo points, it could be a decent trade-off. Priest, another class that doesn't particularly need any help, but what can we give them that's fair but not game-breaking? Holy looks fine as it is really, we don't need to make the best even better. Discipline gets a number of cool spells like Penance, Pain Suppression, Power Word Barrier. All of them are a bit too high power level for Classic in my opinion. Some variation of Vampiric Touch could be interesting. The only issue with this spell for me is it turns Shadow Priest into even more of a monster in PvP. Saying that, the initial version of Vampiric Touch was just dispellable with no downside, and PvP is hardly balanced around 1v1s, or, you know, just balanced in general, so I think we can allow it. It also gives mana regen to the priest party. This made Shadow Priest a much more attractive option in raids come the Burning Crusade, simply because they benefited others so much. This would need a bit of a reshuffle of the debuff priority too. A priest would need Vampiric Touch, Shadow Weaving, and possibly even a Mind Flay slot. Which of course, and I'm saying this completely unbiased, leaves the best class for last, Warlock. Warlocks have had some of the most insane spells over the years. The Mists of Pandaria era Metamorphosis was absolutely amazing, but it'd be impossible to implement due to the complete ability overhaul it would need. Unstable Affliction gave damage over time effects protection in PvP. Chaos Bolt became the iconic destruction spell, which has actually had a few changes over the years, initially being unresistible and going through shields, and eventually changing into the guaranteed crit ability it still is today. I quite like Fell Armor too actually, and once again this one's from the Burning Crusade. It's like a more offensive option than Demon Armor for locks, but at the end of the day it's just a stat buff, so it's not too exciting. If you've played a Warlock in Classic, you know the struggle that is Threat, and in the Burning Crusade they were given Soul Shatter for this exact reason. An on-demand 90% reduction to Threat on a 2-minute cooldown. Very powerful. But Threat is a weakness I think locks just have to deal with, so I wouldn't want them to have this ability. Maybe Havoc would fit in. No range class really has the niche for cleave damage too much. Which version of Havoc would fit best though? It's gone from a pretty tame 15% copy effect to an insane duplicating all single target spells for 10 seconds. A mix between the two from patch 5.04 looks like a decent medium for me. 45-second cooldown, next 3 spells will copy across. It would be powerful, maybe a bit too powerful, but at the same time, you have to consider just how much threat this will be causing. Honestly, you've really got to give Blizzard credit for coming up with some abilities that they have done over the years. Not everything moving forwards has been a step back, and who knows, maybe one day we'll get to relive the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King. We'll just have to wait and see for that. Anyways, what did you think about the choices here? What would you have done yourself? What have been some of your favourite abilities? And remember, this is just for a bit of fun. I wouldn't actually want any of this to happen. It'd be a complete mess, but we all know that. We're all sensible people on the internet here, right? Right? Anyways, I hope you have a great Halloween, and I will catch you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.